They thought it would be funny, harmless even, the kind of office joke people laugh about over coffee and forget by Monday, but the truth was that everything about the plan carried the quiet cruelty of people who had never known what it felt like to be invisible. The janitor, whose name was Daniel but whom most people referred to only as the cleaner, had worked in the glass tower for nearly 9 years, arriving before dawn and leaving long after the last executive had gone home, his reflection sweeping across marble floors that never reflected him back as anything more than background noise. He was polite, unfailingly kind, and careful not to take up space, and that was precisely why a group of mid-level managers decided he was the perfect punchline. The female CEO, Elena Wright, had recently agreed, half jokingly, half sincerely, to let her assistant set her up on a blind date, claiming she had no time for love but admitting she sometimes missed being seen as more than a title. The managers overheard, exchanged glances, and the seed of a cruel idea took root. They told Elena they had found someone interesting, grounded, and different from the usual corporate types, omitting the rest, while telling Daniel that a woman from another company had noticed his kindness and wanted to meet him. Daniel tried to decline, embarrassment tightening his chest, but the promise that this woman liked him for who he was, not what he owned, softened his resistance, and so on a quiet Friday evening, he stood nervously in a modest suit he had saved for special occasions, waiting at a small restaurant near the office, unaware that several people were watching from a distance, phones ready, smiles already forming. When Elena arrived, she was surprised, not offended, just surprised, because the men who stood to greet her did not look like the executive she was used to, but before she could speak, she noticed his hand shaking slightly as he pulled out her chair, the careful respect in his movements, the way he listened more than he talked. Daniel, for his part, recognized her immediately. He had seen her 100 times in the building, walking fast, surrounded by people, eyes always forward, and now here she was, sitting across from him, real and close enough that he could hear the soft catch in her breath when she laughed. The conversation began awkwardly, but slowly, something shifted. He spoke about his late mother, who taught him dignity mattered even when no one was watching, about cleaning floors while listening to audiobooks on history and philosophy, about how he believed every job carried honor if done with care. Elena listened, truly listened, and felt something unfamiliar stir, admiration unconnected to power, respect unearned by status. Meanwhile, the managers watched, confused as the laughter they expected never came, replaced instead by long, quiet moments where the two leaned closer, their words low and sincere. Halfway through dinner, Daniel's voice faltered as he admitted the truth, that he was the janitor in her building and that he suspected this date might be a joke at his expense, and he apologized for wasting her time, already preparing himself for humiliation. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Elena set her glass down, eyes shining, and asked him who told him his time was worth less than anyone else's, who decided dignity came from a paycheck, and then she did something that would later echo through the company halls like a legend. She stood, her voice steady but thick with emotion, and spoke not just to him but to everyone watching, knowingly or not. She said she had spent years surrounded by powerful people who never saw her, truly saw her, and that tonight, a man who scrubbed floors for a living had reminded her what humility, intelligence, and humanity looked like. She said if anyone thought this was a joke, the joke was on them, because they had mistaken status for substance and laughter for worth. Tears streamed freely down Daniel's face as she took his hand, not out of pity but respect, and in that moment, the watchers lowered their phones, shame crawling up their throats. The following Monday, Elena called an all-hands meeting and told the story herself, not naming names but making one thing clear: cruelty disguised as humor would not be tolerated, and neither would overlooking the value of any person in the building. She announced new education programs, fair wage reviews, and most shockingly, offered Daniel a scholarship funded by the company to pursue any education he chose, not because she wanted to save him, but because she believed in investing where others had never bothered to look. Daniel tried to refuse, but she reminded him that accepting help was not weakness, and that sometimes, letting others see you was the bravest act of all. The story spread beyond the company, not because Elena wanted praise, but because people needed to hear that kindness still mattered, that dignity could stand taller than power, and that a joke meant to humiliate had instead revealed the quiet strength of a man and the courageous compassion of a woman unafraid to lead with her heart. And as Daniel walked through the building now, heads turned, not in mockery, but in respect, he understood that while floors could be cleaned and titles could change, the way people treated one another was what truly defined success. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you to see the unseen, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because every subscription helps us share more stories that challenge cruelty, celebrate humanity, and remind the world that the most powerful moments often come from the most unexpected places.